welcome to episode 230 of the Lookout Sir Warhammer podcast, presented by myself, Dan, but of course not alone, never alone, when Phil's around. How you doing, Phil?
I am skulking around as always.
You are a naughty little goblin hiding in the bushes, observing all, naughty thoughts.
Not children.
Not children?
I'm not observing children in the bushes.
That's good.
I'm just putting it out there.
There's no surer way to convince people that's what you're doing than saying you're not, So you may as well have written a song about it.
Right. I'm definitely not. It might be, the song of the naughty goblin in the bush. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Who's definitely not staring at children.
It definitely reminds me of that episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia that you've almost certainly not seen, which was Frank's Little Beauties.
Okay.
And he does this whole thing where it's he basically buys a beauty pageant because he thinks he's buying a beauty pageant for, hot women. And it turns out that he purchased a beauty pageant for children.
Creepy.
And he comes in and he goes, "We need to do a song about not diddling kids," is what he called it. Not diddle kids, it's no good diddling kids. That was the punchline of that. Is there's no it's a quicker way of convincing people that you're diddling kids than writing a song about it. So
I can understand that. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, he got his makeup done by a funeral director or something. So the whole episode is fantastic. It's top 5 Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
That is high praise from you, Dan.
Well, exactly. By the standards of their series, I'd say it's up there. That and the Dayman musical. Anyway, you have no frame of reference, so we're going to move along. Did you watch any of the Christmas films this year, Phil? I mean, it is the season. Have you done any of the cringy Christmases?
I've done Home Alone 1 and 2. I watched them in reverse order. I started with 2, thinking I won't watch number 1, but then after watching 2, I was like, actually, let's go watch number 1.
You just neglect 3. It has no place in your headcanon.
Well, it doesn't have was it Macaulay Culkin in it, so it would feel wrong. I'm almost tempted. I don't think I've ever seen it, so it's almost tempting, but I think I should just avoid it.
Well, it has all the same sort of tropes, I suppose. Young lad mucks around with cool gadgets and toys and then gets involved in a situation that's actually really quite absurd, I suppose. But
that's true. My plan at some point is to watch Gremlins 1 and 2, though, as my piece de resistance Christmas movies.
Is Gremlin 2 a Christmas movie? I don't think Gremlin 2 is.
I believe it is. It is still set at Christmas.
Is it still set at Christmas? Are you sure?
I am. I'm convinced. I'm not 100%, but I am pretty convinced.
Okay. I'm not convinced, but I don't really care enough to shatter that.
I think it's set inside the building, so you don't notice it being that Christmas.
Is that what it is? You don't notice because it's inside the building. Yeah.
I think so.
Gremlins 1 is definitely a Christmas movie.
Yes.
100%. Yeah. I just don't know if Gremlins 2, the new batch, is.
Well, I will watch it and make it Christmassy.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. It's easily done. You can maybe cut out the scene where Hulk Hogan asks the Gremlins to restart the movie, or to be fair, if you've got the VHS version, I think it was who was it? It was on the VHS version. I think it was like Clint Eastwood or something. Anyway.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, because they did a specific VHS version. The Gremlins had broken your VHS tape, as opposed to the theatrical release that had Hulk Hogan shouting at Gremlins in the projection booth or whatever it's called at the theatre. Anyway, we digress. It is episode 230. It may be the last episode we do of the year. Who knows, really, at this point. Me and Phil are just, loosey-goosey when it comes to all this. But what are we actually talking about in the bulk of this episode, Phil?
We are talking about Crusade Nachmund Gauntlet.
Nachmund Gauntlet. I don't know what a Nachmund is, but I'm glad that I can, put my hand in it.
Exactly. Wear it like a glove.
Wear it like a glove. Or some kind of gauntlet, I imagine. Because the gauntlet is the wristy bit, right? But obviously your hand would have to pass through it.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that, and then maybe we talked about some other stuff. We'll see how it goes as it goes. We've got a 5-star review. Thank you to J to the A to the T, that's me, on Apple Podcasts of Great Britain. We're going to get into doing that in a moment. Also, massive shout out to our patrons. It's hugely appreciated. This is around the time of the year where we have to pay for everything again because we buy it all on an annual basis. So myself and Phil will be, slapped with all sorts of administrative and or technology-based fees in the coming months. So thank you massively to all you lovely patrons who make us doing this podcast a entirely plausible endeavour. You are the best of humans, and we appreciate you greatly. And then lastly, there's merch from our good friends over at Rev Level, so check all that out in the links below. And yeah, unless there's anything else, we're going to just crack on and get on with the aforementioned 5-star review. What do you say, Phil?
Before we go, why don't you tell me what Christmas movie you've watched?
Oh, well, all right, I'll tell you what Christmas movie I watched. The reason I brought it up, actually, I did just recently watch Deck the Halls, featuring Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick. It's terrible, but it had Danny DeVito in it, which also Always Sunny in Philadelphia did, so it was kind of a tangential link to Danny DeVito in Christmas movies.
Do you know another Christmas movie you could watch that he's in?
Batman 2.
Correct. Oh, I knew you'd get it.
Of course I get it. Of course I get it.
I know, Danny DeVito aficionado, number one fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Technically, I think there is some Christmas-related scenes in the movie Twins as well.
I was going to say that. I did hear that is slightly Christmassy, but I'm not 100% sure of that myself.
Yeah. I think maybe that's what happens in the maybe Deck the Halls, which is Danny DeVito as a car salesman trying to have his house seen from space by illuminating it with loads of lights, and the events of Jingle All the Way. Maybe they are of the shared universe, and maybe that is basically the ways that those two individuals went after the events of Twins.
Yeah, no, that could be it.
Arnold went off and became a successful carpet salesman or whatever it is that he does in Jingle All the Way. I can't remember, I haven't watched it in ages. But
is that the one where he's fighting a guy over that one toy for his kids?
Yeah, so it's Sinbad. Old Sinbad. He's having a fight with Sinbad the whole time.
That's it.
The funny thing is, I was watching Red Letter Media's commentary track on that movie, and they made the very fair and completely brilliant point of how come the wife didn't just go buy it? Because by all accounts, she's, not to diminish, obviously, what, being a stay-at-home mother means. I'm not suggesting for a second that that's not a lot of hard work, nor were they, for that matter. But they were kind of like, he's got to go to the office and do the job. She could have just gone to the shop and bought it.
That sounds like the patriarchy talking down. We're not allowed.
Well, that's it. Well, don't blame me. Blame Mike J and maybe Rich from Red Letter Media. They're to be blamed. They're the worst of us. Not me. I'm correct. As was denoted in the 5-star review, which we're going to transition to now.
Peter!
Oh, hello, Dad.
What are you doing in here, son?
Oh,
What have I told you about wasting your time with these little plastic figurines?
It's not a waste of time, I like it.
How dare you talk back to me, Peter? It's about time you grew up.
I don't want to grow up. Oh, man, maybe there's something on the radio. Yeah, this is nicer.
Peter!
What's that?
That's right, it's me, the ghost of a award-winning TV and radio presenter, Jeremy Beadle.
Jeremy Beadle?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Now let me tell you here, Sonny, my dad was always telling me to grow up, and I never did. And look how successful I was. So ignore him, Peter, and keep playing with that little plastic crack. And while you're at it, listen to the Look Out Sir podcast, which right now is time for the 5-star review.
Wow, thanks, Jeremy.
Who are you talking to with there, son?
Jeremy Beadle.
What? No!
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Look Out Sir. And that is the word stated by J to the A to the T, that's me, Apple Podcasts of United Kingdom, and the stars, Phil, read 5, as is, of course, a prerequisite of appearing here in the 5-star review section. Thank you, J to the A to the T. That's me. You are an absolute saint and a scholar. And to elaborate on that, I'm going to read what you said, unless Phil has any initial thoughts about birds, planes, and lookouts, sir.
5 stars. That's what we like to see. Thank you very much.
That's it. 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. Indeed, 3 out of 3. Don't you dare stop. If you do, I shall be forced to track you down and ask you politely to reconsider. The most entertaining podcast that luxuriates my ear holes on the weekly. What more is there to ask for? The tangent. I don't know what that word is. Hang on. I'm going to have to go to Google. And, phonetic spelling. Carmugen. Okay. What does it mean? What does the word mean? Especially of an old person, bad-tempered and negative.
Curmudgeon.
Curmudgeonly. There it is. God, we got there in the end. God, the old dyslexia is strong with me at the moment. The curmudgeonly tangent, the authentic commentary, the wizened musings of these embittered men of middle age brings a lightness to one's soul and glory to the God Emperor himself. Keep up the good work, chaps. I'm sure the big money will start rolling around episode 500. Yeah, I mean, you can only imagine. P.S. Please bring back Jeremy Beadle intro back. That was my favourite bit. All right, fine. I will, in place of my transitional noise, put the Jeremy Beadle thing back in. So you have already heard that. And I'll put it in at the end of this as well. We'll transition with Jeremy Beadle yet again. We'll do it twice. Or I'll do it once. I'll put it somewhere. It will, if you haven't heard it yet, it's coming up later. Anyway, PPS, I signed up to your Patreon, so I think that this review should be shunted up the queue. Well, we got to it. So cheers very much, J to the A to the T. That's me. You are a, gentleman. We do appreciate the support. We really do. And we hope, if possible, to keep on going. But who knows what the future might hold, eh, Phil? It's a mystery to all.
Indeed. The new year is full of new promises. And as we always say, when the reviews run out, we down our tools in protest.
Exactly. All right, well, there we go. That was that. We're even now going to have the Jeremy Beadle noise or me doing transitional or me doing both. I'll do the transitional and I'll put it in somewhere. Here we go. It's fine.
Am I not saying thank you?
I'm sorry. I thought that was you saying thank you. I don't know why. I completely forgot the patter. To elaborate on that further, it's Phil.
Well, thank you. Thank you, J to the A to the T. That's me. Greatly appreciate your kind words. Glad you think we're old, grumpy men shouting at clouds, because we are. I don't know if that means he is also an old, grumpy man and seeks fellowship in us, or he's a young stud of a man just looking at us, his wise elders, as we impart knowledge into his brain. But either way, thank you very much. Question for you, Dan. How long ago was the review?
Oh, it was a month ago.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't, because we had a new Patreon member this week, so obviously it wasn't.
Oh! Well, thank you to them. Yeah. Thank you to this guy. Thank you to everybody. It's been great. Obviously, it's Christmas time now, so enjoy that. And yeah, we'll keep you posted with things that are happening when they happen. But until then, here's the episode.
Yeah, Merry Christmas if we're not around next week.
Exactly. Have a lovely one. Happy New Year. All of that good stuff. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you soon. Brilliant. All right, great. Transitional noise.
Peter!
Oh, hello,
What are
Dad.
you doing in here, son?
Oh, I'm
What
just...
have I told you about wasting your time with these little plastic figurines?
It's not a waste of time. I like it.
How dare you talk back to me, Peter? It's about time you grew up.
I don't want to grow up. Oh, man, maybe there's something on the radio. Yeah, this is nicer.
Peter!
What's that?
That's right, it's me, the ghost of a award-winning TV and radio presenter, Jeremy Beadle.
Jeremy Beadle?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Now let me tell you here, Sonny, my dad was always telling me to grow up, and I never did. And look how successful I was. So ignore him, Peter, and keep playing with that little plastic crack. And while you're at it, listen to the Look Out Sir podcast, which right now is time for the 5-star review.
Wow, thanks, Jeremy.
Who are you talking to with that, son?
Jeremy Beadle.
What? No!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the bit of the podcast where we do the podcast bit. Isn't that right, Phil?
100% factually correct.
Absolutely. Accurate measurement of the truth, as told by us, the Look Out Sir podcast people. And on this occasion, what is the topic of our debate, Phil? Not that people don't know already, but we're saying it for the sake of saying it.
Yes, if you skip the intro, it's Crusade Nakman Gauntlet.
There we go. Crusade, Nakman Gauntlet. That little bit of space, Phil, above, the old Rifty Terry thing, sort of up from Terror a bit. If Holy Terror is the middle bit, then Nakman Gauntlet is the bit sort of upwards to the right a little bit, so a bit sort of northwesty, or northeasterly, sorry, get my directions wrong there, of Terror. The Nakman Gauntlet essentially is a space between a real space between the
Space.
Maledictum.
Space between space. Yes, you are correct.
Between, real space between nothing space, or whatever the Great Rift is called, or whatever. And the warp, yes, I suppose. The warp made manifest, whatever it is, tears, etc., etc. But yeah, so, you got that bit, and then in there is a popular planet called Vigilus, which was made famous by the events of the Vigilus books that featured heavily in 8th edition. I find it funny now, Phil, becoming increasingly aware of the fact that a lot of people who play Warhammer 40,000 now today, far more people weren't playing 8th edition than were, as it were. Like, 8th edition felt big at the time, but it's almost been dwarfed in the time since, it seems.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have picked up on it post 8th edition, but I guess that probably coincides with the influx of the COVID generation of 40k players.
That's true. The COVID times did certainly boom the Warhammer 40,000 enthusiasm, I suppose, which is obviously good for all involved. So, yes, fabulous stuff. But for those of you who don't know, basically, during the events of the events on Vigilus, you had Vigilus and then Vigilus Ablaze, or was it?
I think it was Vigilus
something?
Defiant, and then it was Vigilus Ablaze, which was the 2-part books. Of Vigilus Defiant was the notable entry because it was the one that had all the cool rules for every single faction, except Necrons, if I recall correctly. And then
wow,
Vigilus,
no one likes Necrons,
Well, they seem to have missed the party. And then Vigilus Ablaze had some rules predominantly for Chaos players, I believe. So no one really cared about that book quite as much. But it did obviously round out a bit of the story.
Because no one likes Chaos, do they, Phil? It's a very unpopular thing.
Yes, yeah. Who cares about those guys? I sort of felt like it was, I can't remember what it was. There was that box set that came out that had the Phobos Marines in and the Chaos with the Venom Crawler and stuff like that in it. And I felt like
Shadow Sword, Spear Tip, something or other.
Oh yeah, it was something like that. Shadowy
Sword, Dagger Knife in the dark, flying at you from the shadows, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like it was the rules for those models. If I'm not mistaken, in that second book.
It was, yeah. And don't forget, Phil, it was also the unveiling of the then seminal event, which was the first of the mainline Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine characters to become primarified by passing over the Rubicon Primaris thingamabib, getting old Cool's Furnace put up inside them.
Yes, crossing the Rubicon for Marnius Calgar, after suffering being stabbed, I think, in the heart or the chest by the Slaanesh greater demon, but not the Keeper of Secrets. The one with the spear. Maybe that's
The
not
Slaanesh? Oh, what? The one with two names, because there's two of them.
No, not that one. It's the one. I think it's he's got the spear and the spear and the. Why don't we just look it up? The spear and the.
What was that? Who did it? I thought it was Abaddon the Spoiler who did that to him, or did he become Primarified, then have a fight with Abaddon the Spoiler?
Correct. That is the order in which it happened.
And he nearly died from the Abaddon fight as well, didn't he?
Yes, and then had to be rushed away. And it's like, well, you could have just made him Primaris at that point. So there was a bit of poetry, it rhymes, to quote George Lucas, circular storytelling going on.
Calgar's having a horrible time in it. He's literally been struck down by what's their chops with the spear and shield. Something Hellblade or something, isn't it? What is it? Shaleki, something?
It could be, but I'm just going to try and look it up and find out.
There you go. You're on it. Greater Demon of Slaanesh.
Demons? Let's have a look.
Oh, here it is. The Keeper of Secrets. Hang on, is this the thing?
No, Shalaxi Hellbane, you are correct.
Shalaxi Hellbane, there we go. We're on it. We know our Warhammer here.
It is the one that looks very similar to the Keeper of Secrets, though.
Well, exactly, on account of that, it's based off of the same miniature, etc., etc. But, anyway, the long and short of it is so old Hellbane, Bane, gave him a stabbing, and then he almost died, but lo and behold, they came along and said, we've sorted it out. We'll just make him a Primaris. And then at the time, we were all frustrated because we thought that Calgar was going to become a Dreadnought, didn't we? That was what we were thinking. A Redemptor Dreadnought character kit.
They teased us with a short video that said, only in death does duty end. And we all know that's like, in my mind, that is a quote for a Dreadnought.
That is Dreadnought talk, absolutely. Yeah. So, when he wasn't a Dreadnought, we were all like, oh, he's become a Primaris thing. Fair enough. And, over time, he's become one of the more popular characters in the world of Warhammer 40,000. He's always been obviously very popular, but
certainly.
I think his gameplay prowess has always given him a place on the tabletop, right? He's been a strong miniature for at least the span of 9th and 10th edition, obviously.
He's always been a strong miniature, Dan, especially when you give him flat 3 damage before he actually had flat 3 damage.
He always had flat 3 damage, Phil. Just if you believed hard enough.
Exactly. Yeah, timey-wimey. Yeah. He made it happen.
Timey-wimey. It was mad, though, right? The Gauntlets of Ultramar, D3 damage. What the hell was going on there? That was so stupid. Should have been flat damage free, Phil, and it was. My Calgar knew better.
I thought it was just flat 2 damage, or was it D3 damage?
No, it was D3. It was D3.
There was a 3 in the numbers somewhere.
Exactly. They were master crafted, twin-linked D3 damage or whatever. So, but that was Twin Link when Twin Link just meant that they re-rolled hit rolls, which he did all the time anyway, because he was a chapter master. Because back in 9th edition, chapter masters just had a re-roll hit rolls and re-roll 1 to wound roll aura. So it didn't matter anyway. But he did have punchy fists, because Twin Linked anyway. It doesn't matter. I've already said the words. The point is Calgar was important in those events. They introduced a load of formations into the game, which was cool to see, because they basically were like, oh, here's some specific detachments that you can take that can inject a load of flavor into your armies, which is super cool and obviously really appreciated. Some of the obvious winners from that was the Imperial Fist Centurion detachment. That was pretty hilarious. But they did also introduce the Indomitus Crusade, or Grey Shields, which was really cool, because the Grey Shields were able to pick different doctrines from different chapters every turn, which was a really cool detachment back in the day for them.
So for people that don't know, Grey Shields are the Primaris reinforcements for specific chapters before they reach that chapter. They're called Grey Shields because I think it's their whole armour is unpainted. It's just their bare grey colour. And then when they join their chapter, I think that's when they get the paint job, which seems a bit mad. Surely you know who you're going with. and you would just get painted up. But in the early days...
I originally started doing a Grey Shield army based on the theme of, as you described it, and I kind of did them like a sort of almost pseudo Deathwatch scheme where it was grey armor with a single arm in the style of the chapter. But as it turns out, I think there was a Black Library novel cover that basically showed a Space Marine in their appropriate chapter color scheme with basically just a sort of Indomitus Crusade little grey icon over their chapter marking, basically. So I believe they went to war in the colours of their legion, as it were, or their chapter. And then they were assigned to different parts of it as Primaris, which always created a weird question in my mind, which is based on that logic, right? Based on the idea that they essentially were kind of boiled down to their primary legions, even if they were then going to later go on and join successors. What did the Space Wolves look like? It always confused me.
Why, what should they look like?
Well, because most people default and assert that the symbol of the silhouette of the howling wolf in black on a yellow shoulder pad is the symbol of the Space Wolves, but that's specifically Ragnar Blackmane's great company or whatever it's called.
Yeah, you're correct.
So people default and think that's the thing. So anyway, that was always my weirdness. I was like, because the salamanders have a very salamandery color scheme with a very singular kind of like chapter marking, as so is true of Blood Angels, Dark Angels, even though obviously there's some nuance around Deathwing and Ravenwing there. But Space Wolves are weird because they don't really have a uniform chapter marking. They just have their individual company.
Yeah, that's true. I think Games Workshop answer is probably don't think about it too much, and that's probably why they didn't talk about it all that much at the time, at least. I think it got expanded upon a little bit in the Dark Imperium books because that was talking about I don't know if it was specifically a Torchbearer fleet, because I feel like that was a name that came out a bit later, but the Primaris reinforcements that were going to Ultramar, and I think there was a bit of a hoo-ha about how the Ultramarines have a lot more Primaris than all the other chapters, and it's like, surely you have more Marines than you're meant to be allocated according to the Codex, and they're like, whatever.
Exactly, whatever. Don't worry about it. No need to get all kind of, in the weeds on these sorts of things. Just focus on the big picture.
It was basically Primarch's privilege. It's like, Rabuti's here, so he gets special treatment.
Yeah. That's the way it goes, right? You just kind of have to sort of, just roll with it. It's fine. Don't worry about it, Look at the hands, not look away. Yeah. Everything is fine. But yes, anyway, so long story made short, in the olden days of 8th edition, Vigilus, which was basically situated at the entry point as a kind of world in the way of the Nakman Gauntlet, was a site of quite a conflict. Calgar emerged primarified, fought against Abaddon the Despoiler, and Abaddon the Despoiler was said to be besting Calgar, because obviously remember at the time as well in 8th edition, Calgar's stat line was basically the same as Abaddon's back then, which isn't to say that Calgar had like a monstrous profile. It was always just weird that Abaddon the Despoiler didn't.
Well, this was also the introduction of new Abaddon in terms of his miniature. And do you remember there was like a countdown? Because I think, was it the first book had Harkon Worldclaimer in, and that was like the main chaos model for that. And he was the harbinger of Abaddon, and therefore he was like, you have 36 days until he arrives, which was the taken from the actual story where he announces to Vigilus before Abaddon arrives. And then there was like a website ticking down those days, which gave you I think it was after Christmas, it would have been like January sometime, early January, reveal of Abaddon coming in the second book, I believe.
Yeah, I forgot about that, because they actually did that as a actual countdown, which was sort of building up to it, which was all very interesting at the time. A nice, again, Games Workshop back then were definitely a lot more experimental and a lot more kind of. They took a lot of initiative when it came to the marketing and promotion around 8th edition. It felt they were definitely up for trying lots of different things at the time, at least when it came to the social side of it. But look. Anyway, long story short is that it was looking like Calgar was going to get hiding, but then because the vengeful spirit was under threat, oh no, Abaddon went, you know what? I can kill this guy anytime. I can't get the vengeful spirit back if it goes away, so I best go and run away in that now, thanks. And
from what I remember, it was like a Vendetta or Valkyrie loaded with Deathstrike missiles, which, questionable size in terms of how that went. With the aid of the Elder, they basically launch it at the Vengeful Spirit. The Vengeful Spirit's internal, demon spirit, and I think also all the tech priests, or the chaos versions of tech priests, warpsmiths maybe, all panic and we must retreat and repair it. And they start sending it off into the warp, and basically Abaddon's like, well, I don't want to be left behind. I need to make sure I'm with my ship. I think is why he then was sort of forced to have to retreat from the fight, which is why he left.
Indeed. So that's basically the events of the Vigilus stuff, massively simplified. Again, the broad strokes being that it was yet another example of Games Workshop going, we're going to do a big cataclysmic world event set on a planet, which was good because it was only really kind of very specifically set on the planet and the surrounding systems, although obviously there was broader Nachman gauntlet elements to it, but fundamentally it focused on the Vigilus element quite extensively. And then from there on in, they introduced a bunch of reasons why a bunch of other armies were there taking part, and they had sort of different areas and things that were going on. It was quite a nice campaign, all things being equal. I seem to remember it being quite a positive one. I certainly enjoyed the addition to Warhammer 40,000 at the time. I thought it brought a lot of really interesting extra flavour and ideas. And again, you have to remember, up until this point, Primaris had been quite limited in terms of its scope, right? At this moment in time, we actually only had a repulsor, not even the repulsor executioner at this time, just the repulsor, the Redemptor Dreadnought, the Intercessors, the Hellblasters, the Inceptors, the Reavers, or whatever they're called. What are they called? The Reavers, the knifey guys with the masks.
The Reavers,
Reavers squad, yeah.
Did you say aggressors?
Aggressors, and then there was a Captain, Chaplain, and a Librarian. And that was it, basically. That was it from the outset of the Primaris range, right? Unless I'm missing anything obvious.
Did you say ancient? There was an ancient and Hellblasters.
Oh, there was an ancient, yeah. There was an ancient, you're right, yes. But I think that was basically it in terms of everything they had at that time. So at this moment, when they were introducing new Phobos kits and were going, oh, here's Infiltrators, here's Incursors, here's a Librarian in Phobos armor, here's a Captain in Phobos armor, here's Suppressors. They're not in Phobos armor, but hey, they're on the sprue. Get used to it.
That's true. Yeah. There was also in set, because there was a couple of the older Gravis kits I'm thinking of. I think they were around about that time.
Inceptors were there before. I thought I mentioned them, but regardless, the point is it was exciting at that time because obviously the world we're in today, there's more Primaris stuff than you can shake a stick at, but back then it was quite new and interesting. So that was a lot of really the excitement around Vigilus at the time, but then also the fact that it really was starting to kind of deliver on the idea of the sorts of new narrative ideas that they were going to explore within the setting. Because prior to this, we'd obviously gotten the 8th edition rulebook, and they talked about, obviously, the Great Rift, and they talked about the events following the fall of Cadia, and they talked about the kind of hundreds of years that had transpired as Guilliman had gone on his crusades and done all his stuff. And we were at a point now where they'd sort of, set the timer, and we were starting to, see what the world was looking like in that moment, which was really exciting. So, I think Nachmund to me, or rather specifically Vigilus to me, really represented a really interesting time and actually felt like quite a good addition to the Warhammer canon, if you will. So yeah, I was very positive about Vigilus at the time, or at least I believe I was. I might go back and listen to the episode we put out and find out I was a bit more negative about, Calgar than maybe I remember. But I seem to recall that I was quite positive about it all. So yeah, I think that basically is the upfront as we go into talking Nachmund. Unless there's anything else you need to cover off, dear Phil.
Yes, so after those two books, in 9th edition, there was Warzone Nachmund. I don't think it was called Nachmund Gauntlet. I think it was just Warzone Nachmund. I could be wrong. Which followed on from the event. So there was a tiny bit of wrapping up what was happening on Vigilus. There was a lot of talk about the gossip of whether Marnus Calgar had died because he hadn't been seen by anyone, and people on both sides were leaning into that to sort of the paranoia and the story of it. And I think even the Marines were using it to sort of rally the troops that he had fallen as a way of, well, we've got our last ditch effort on Vigilus, we're the only people to, we must avenge him sort of thing. And then it follows Harken Worldclaimer going through the Nachmund Gauntlet, because they're basically like Chaos has Vigilus sort of wrapped up. Almost like it's inconsequential at this point, because the fleet of Chaos ships are just going down, running down the gauntlet quite literally, to get to the other side. Then there's a big thing about one of the planets where I think there's like a night planet that there's like a big battle on, and that I think is where they introduce maybe the Chaos Knight range, or maybe they expand on it. It was something like that. And then the story, I believe, ends with there being a big defense by the Imperium of the sort of the Nachmund Gauntlet entrance in the main part of the Imperium, not the north half, the southern half with Terror. And then basically it ends with Harken Worldclaimer sort of running towards it, basically with like a big setup of there's going to be a showdown. Overall, it was, I think, if I remember rightly, a bit underwhelming in terms of what it covered, but the setup of what might happen next was quite interesting from what I remember my thoughts being at the time.
Yeah. They love doing that, though, right? They love leaving us on a cliffhanger and setting up a bunch of things and then neglecting to remember that they even talked about it. I suppose this is the weird thing about the original kind of Vigilus events, is that although they concluded relatively unsatisfactorily, at least they concluded in themselves, right? It wasn't like they were, it was like he got away. And it sort of rendered the whole moment a little bit limp, because it was like, okay, he's gone now, as you were, everybody. But it's at least it was a conclusion of sorts, which is cool, and wasn't just going for the relatively tired kind of trope of, some kind of planet is on the horizon. Oh, it's a planet-shaped thing. Watch out for that. It's coming for you. So, oh, good. The old planet's coming back for me again. What a treat. But I'm sure, Phil, this time around, in the new events of Crusade Nachmund Gauntlet, it can't possibly end in a big planet somewhere nearby, could it?
Well, we've had 2 so far of this edition's stories ending with a big planet of some sort. So let's hope not this time around.
Absolutely. Even, maybe, no big planet, or maybe even, like a spherical interstellar entity of some sort. Yeah, exactly. That's no moon. Good Lord. Right, okay, so, Phil, remind our dear listeners, or inform them from the outset, who are the key factions taking place in the events of the Nachmund Gauntlet this time around?
So it's Chaos versus Imperium, and I believe it's predominantly Guard, Sisters of Battle, and some Space Marines, if I can recall my memory correctly. And then Chaos is predominantly Night Lords with a sprinkling of, Black Legion, sort of a bit of everyone.
Yeah. So fundamentally, a bit of Chaos and a bit of, and Imperium made up of kind of, basically the three key components of that. We assume there's some Mechanicus kicking around somewhere, but fundamentally they're not quite as.
I think they're all busy in the silent with the Silent King in the Prior Nexus, basically.
Prior Nexus, yes, yeah. They're all over there dealing with that nonsense, which is fair enough. So yeah. So how do you want to get things started, mate? Where do we want to begin? I suppose we may as well start at the start.
Yeah, I will start with the story time, and then we'll see how we get on. So it starts off with Harkon World Claimer. He's aboard the Desolation-class battleship, Scourge of Worlds, which I believe is his ship.
Scourge of Worlds.
He's preparing for his next warp translation. The ship is ready. The engines are revving up. Thousands of other ships have gathered alongside him in the Jestine system, which I believe is probably somewhere in the Nakman Gauntlet. Aboard the ship, the Sanctum is sealed, and a cabal of sorcerers are allowed to contact with the Warp Master himself. Sorry, not Warp Master, War Master himself, Abaddon, to discuss the plans, which is obviously some kind of heresy, because this isn't something that is easily done in terms of communication, because this is like one-to-one holographic chit-chat, like they're FaceTiming. It's not like astropaths where it's like, oh, I got a vibe off of someone. I think this is the dream they are sending me. So this is much more clever forms of communication.
Wild.
Yeah. Then we've got little remains of the Imperial forces and Xenos pirates in the Nakman Gauntlet. Harkon has made contingency plans to deal with them, with what remains. Meanwhile, Vanguard forces are already in the Gorandal subsector, which is through the Nakman Gauntlet. So he's already got infiltrating Vanguard forces, doing malicious activity.
He's a busy boy.
Well, exactly, yeah. So Abaddon confirms to Harkon that Vigilus was without reinforcements, as in Imperial reinforcements, and would soon fall. Abaddon orders Harkon to the Gorondol subsector to take the planet Sanguiterra, which is the key planet of the story. And basically, he's going to use that as the staging ground for the conquest of the rest of the Imperium. And as a gift, a new ship arrives from the warp. This is a big ship, Dan. It's like, instead of at the end, it comes at the beginning. It's called Planet Killer.
Is it planet-shaped? Oh, it's Planet Killer.
No, it's not. It's Planet Killer, but it is a void ship of immense size. And if I remember rightly, there's a big old picture of it in there's a schematic diagram in the book. It looks like a quintessential classic Chaos ship from, Battlefleet Gothic, but it's even bigger with lots of guns.
Bigger with lots of guns sounds proper terrifying.
Yeah, I think there might be a point later on where we do describe it, because it is important to the plots, this big supersized ship. So next up we have Paths of Ruination. So we've got the Nakman Gauntlet is the most stable route to cross between the Citatrix Maledictum, or Malefictum, between the Vigilus system in the Imperial Nihilus and the Sanguis system of the Imperium Sanctum, which is the normal bit of space and where Terra is in that half of the Empire. Travelling this route is still fraught with dangers and still requires many limited warp jumps. So even though it is relatively stable, it's still nuts for all intents and purposes. We then have Conquest of the Gauntlet. So when Abaddon was on Vigilus, it was a combined effort of Marines and Eldari to damage the Vengeful Spirit, which forced Abaddon to leave. In the process, Calgar was injured, and with his body missing, he is presumed dead, because he was basically whisked away, and no one knows where. Obviously, to get into a new suit of Terminator armor.
Obviously. He was a busy boy. Can I just interrupt and say that, because I just quickly looked, the Chaos Planet Killer is exactly the same as the miniature that they created for Battlefleet Gothic back in the day, yes.
I did assume it was.
So they have a Planet Killer miniature for Battlefleet Gothic, and yes, ultimately it is the same thing. But basically what it is a really weird ship with a big kind of central circle in it that looks like it has a lot of wibbly stuff going on. No doubt some kind of grand cathedral to chaos nonsense that causes all sorts of scary things to happen, I would guess.
From what I remember, it has got big guns on it, basically.
It looks that way. It looks like it's basically just got just basically the front of the ship is all just a lot of long, very big guns, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got Chaos forces are still fighting on, and the Noctilith crowns harness the Great Rift energies until Inquisitor Carter Volnus severed a central node, stopping the empiric energies on the world of Vigilus. This is so again very similar to what's happened in the prior Nexus story that we talked about last episode. Chaos has been using the same thing but ramping it up in the other direction to make the Noctilith crowns, which are the pylons, basically more chaos, in intensifying the warp rather than turning it down and switching them off, which is what the Necrons are doing.
Fancy.
Yeah. World Claimer leaves Vigilus intent on conquering the Nachman Gauntlet. By the end, he's intercepted a fleet led by Admiral Priska, who attacks the Gauntlet from the southern mouth, and despite damaging the fleet, the Imperial forces are ultimately doomed. I believe that is basically the end of the Warzone Nachman book. Is where that happens. Meanwhile, Saint Celestine is on Sigillus and battles 3 greater demons. Now, I could have put... No, I don't think it's Vigilus with a typo. I think it is an actual place called Sigillus. Battling 3 greater demons, killing 2 with ease, and finally the third, but dies in the process. Cult of Volnus manages only to just escape. So maybe this is on Vigilus. Sorry, I must have just done a typo. Because
I'm looking at the map and I don't see a Sigillus.
No, that would make sense. So because Cult of Volnus was quite like the Inquisitor that we saw in some of the previous books. So then, wrapping things up, so the main systems to defend for the Imperium at this point are Sanguis, Jagal, Corix, and Leonid. I love these crazy names. You
gotta love them.
Yeah, these are known as the Sanctus Wall because the Imperials love to create a made-up name to define where the battle's happening. And then we've got Junith Arita, who is the lady on the giant-like podium model. She is the key Sister Battle character in this story. And what she describes as a war of faith, which is basically her ladies, arrives into the Sanguis system as well. So she's going to be the key defender of the Sanctus Wall. We then get onto the Sanctus Wall itself. So the planets of the Sanctus Wall were fortified and supplied. Deals were struck with nearby leagues of Votan in the aid of their defence. The planets further afield were stripped of food and medical supplies and even defences, which in turn led those defenceless planets to be the subject of pirate raids and insurrection cults. Because they're like, we need to defend these planets. These are more important, so we're going to sacrifice, quite brutally, some of the outer worlds. On Sangua Terra, war breaks out across all of the planet. A column of 6 Hellhound companies breaks out to reinforce a nearby Hivespool. However, 5 days later, contact with them is lost. Long forgotten and presumed dead orcs from an invasion 50 years ago have emerged from the desert. And then we've got the Warlords of Sanguine Terror, which I believe is a 2-page character breakdown with pretty pictures of the 6 characters with a brief overview, which I will give you here. So we start off with Harkon Worldclaimer. He's charged by Abaddon to claim Sanguine Terror and the 4 systems of the Sanctus Wall. While he took charge of the attacks personally on Sanguine Terror, he delegated the invasion of the Sanctus Walls to others, which we have here. So we've got Cesarhan Nethtar, who's the leader of the Fearrakers. We've got Torian Commodore. He's a baron of the Knight household Mandracore. Over 100 knights have joined him on Abaddon's cause. We've got then Junith Arita, who's the good guy or girl. She commands the Order of the Martyred Lady. She leads the defense of the capital spoil of Sanguine Terror. And then we've got Rasmus Carter-Volnus, an Inquisitor of the Ordo Malus. Having escaped Terror, his fleet used secret routes to reach Sanguine Terror before the World Claimers Armada. And then we've got Arvin Nardef, who commands the 3rd Battle Company of the Guardians of the Covenant chapter, so Space Marines. Completely made up chapter to an extent. And then one of the most senior ranked space marines on the planet, his task was to secure the orbital weapons, which would hopefully clear a corridor through Harkon's fleet, through which any reinforcement ships could reach the planet. We've then got a bit about the Planet Killer. So the Planet Killer is a huge ship of renown from the Gothic Wars. Its main feature is the multi-barreled Armageddon gun. Is an energy weapon of colossal size and power. It can bore through a planet's crust, the planet's magma erupting through the cracks, causing catastrophic destruction to the planet. So it's got a gun that's so powerful it can literally destroy planets, hence the name.
Planet Destroyer or Planet
Killer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. We've then got the invasion begins. So we've got the light cruiser Lord Cherobis leads the Hydra 4 patrol fleet stationed at the Sanguis Mandeville Point. So the Mandeville Point, I believe, is the point at which you actually go to the warp, basically. So often you don't do it in system. You have to fly out further afields to activate your warp engines, and that point is known as the Mandeville Point. And likewise, it's the point of entry into a system as well.
Okay.
So while on his light cruiser, he's patrolling around, 7 signals appear from the warp. They're damaged ships, but they all give true clearance ciphers. Though they were from a strange mix of differing battle fleets. Commander Givon orders a salvation mission, and the patrol fleets moved in. So they're coming in closer because they believe they're Imperial ships that have been damaged and they need rescue from the Nachman Gauntlet. As the ships draw closer in, more ships arrive from the warp, this time much larger and older ships, many barging through the damaged ships and into optimal firing range of the Hydra 4 ships. To Shivon's horror, the damaged craft were clearly just a decoy force, and then he issues an order to alert Sanguine Terror. So this is basically Harkon's fleet barging in, attacking the patrol ships after having lured them closer into optimal firing ranges. Lord Cherobis himself was the first ship to be destroyed, with the remnants of the Hydra 4 patrol following swiftly afterwards. This brings on the fact that the Herald of the Apocalypse has finally arrived to, this side of the Imperium. We've got...
Yes, he's turned up to get busy.
Exactly. He's not here to mess around. We've got Death in the Void. So when Junith Arita arrives on Sanguine Terror, she changed the fleet's defences. No longer are they going to be thinly spread out across the system, but their larger vessels are placed in a position to be able to react to a threat from any direction. Meanwhile, smaller patrol fleets were stationed at the system's Mandeville points to monitor any incoming vessels, much like the Hydra 4 patrol that we just heard about. Many Imperial ships have been fired upon due to poorly trained ships not transmitting their correct crypt ciphers. Either they've not been doing it out in time, but also Harkon's spies have been made aware of this flaw. So this is so the initial bit with the Hydra flaw was a sort of narrative story of 2 pages. And then this is the generic text, sort of almost recapping it in a more matter-of-fact way, which is how Harkon knew to make most of this flaw in the system, because he knows that, the Imperials on their own are just shooting their own ships because they're all a bit too trigger-happy, or people aren't sending out ciphers in time. So he knows there's an issue here. We've got the traitor's lie. So the damaged Imperial ships were taken by Harkon's Armada and repurposed and crewed, and now positioned at the forefront of his fleet. As the Armada arrived in the Sangua system, it all but obliterated 2 of the defensive patrols. The first was Oralax 2, was swiftly dispatched as their astropaths blasted a warning to Sangua Terra, while the other was Bastor 11, if I can count in Roman numerals, only half managed to escape. It was hiding and attempting to transmit Vox warnings, because obviously I believe Harkon appeared in multiple points in the system. It wasn't just one entry. So there were lots of patrols that he encountered, and these were just 2 such stories. We've got the flight into darkness. So signals from both patrols were received by the Prefectus Bastion through broken and though broken and fragmented, it took many hours to confirm the messages. Rear Admiral Borkill took decisive action, mapping out Harkon's fleets, and identified straggling fleet, which he codenamed Heretic Group Lambda, sending over half of his ships to pick away at this weaker force. It was led by Captain Fulvian of the Sons of Medusa. So basically, as Harkon's fleets come in, there's one section of his fleet which is sort of an outlier and straggling behind. Admiral Borkill knows that he can't just fight the whole fleet head on. So he's like, right, we're going to send a lot of our ships over to this one straggling fleet, and we're going to try and deal with them and pick them off. And that should be super easy for us to do. So that's his plan. The space battle lasted for 4 hours, and while the heretics suffered heavy damage, fresh ships were joining in the engagement from Harkon's other fleets, because as soon as they saw that, their little guys were being picked on, other parts of the fleet moved in to engage. Fulvian knew he would be annihilated, so he pulled back the remaining third of his ships back to Sangua Terra. So he's like, okay, I tried my best, but this isn't working.
I gave it a good go.
Exactly. Yeah. We then get Sangua Terra enchained. So soon Harkon's fleets reach Sangua Terra, resting in geostationary orbit over key targets. Subfleets set themselves in positions in high orbit. And lastly, Planet Killer positions itself between the planet and its moon Sigil. The moon is of great importance. So the moon Sigil had long fallen to a demon and was ruled over by Lord Chachorkan. A cabal...
Chachorkan?
Yeah, Chachorkan. So it's a bit mad that on this imperial planet there is this demon moon that just happens to be looming above it, which is funny.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is very odd, yeah.
Yeah, which is odd.
You think they'd go and do something about that?
I know, but I don't think they can, because it's, it's a demon world now. Well, I think it's.
Yeah,
I assume it happened around the Citrix Maledictum, like when that created that planet got taken over.
People think they've got bad neighbours. Imagine that, eh?
No, I know.
Right,
this is even worse. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a cabal of sorcerers aboard Planet Killer, and they make contact with the Demon Lord, and it allows Harkon to make a pact with the demons who would fight for Abaddon's cause. So basically, that's why the Planet Killer positions itself sort of in between the planet and the moon to make contact with the demon. They sign the demon up to help attack the planet. You've then got Planet Strike. So once the pact was made, the invasion begins. First with orbital strikes, swiftly followed by landfall. The Urban Sprawl Alpha was the main target, and the Urban Sprawl Alpha is, I think it's basically a conglomeration of spires that form up this like super city, super hive, and it is the map that features in the campaign map that you get with the book. So when you play the campaign, Urbanospor Alpha, which is a bit of a mouthful, is the map.
Yes.
And it's made up of several key locations, which we talk about in the story. So, yeah, interestingly, the campaign is the fight for the Urbanospor, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Harkon gives his closest and trusted lord the sigil of Tetrokan, but in turn, they're also tasked with taking the most heavily fortified areas. Disproportionately, it seems, those that bear the mark of the demon lord suffer misfortune, ranging from delay in general to death. Despite that, most did eventually succeed. So, yeah. The elites are carrying the mark of the demon, and it seems to be favouring them, but also cursing them in equal measure.
Okay.
Harkon himself leads the Gloom Talons on precision strikes into Urbanospor Alpha. Simultaneously, chaos uprisings occur throughout the city, because what is an imperial city without some chaos cults?
Well, exactly, I barely recognise them.
Exactly. It is not an imperial city at all. You're probably the Tau
absolutely.
Empire or something.
There isn't a Gene Stealer cult or a Chaos cult kicking around. How do you even know you're in the Imperial?
Exactly. So they also timely uprise, making more problems for the Imperium.
Beautiful.
Junifer Rita was based in the Prefectus Bastion, commanding the defences. Forces were sent out to the Urbanospor Alpha to help defend the other spores, even if it weakened Urbanospor Alpha's own defence. God, this is such a tongue twister to say all these names.
I know, it's a lot to it, isn't it?
Yeah, so the sprawls are the name, I think, for the cluster of hives, or how they describe cities in this book about this planet, I think is how it works. We've also got Canoness Precept Viridine. She leads the Sisters of Battle and Defense of the city. She's reinforced with Titans and Marines at key locations. Meanwhile, good old Inquisitor Carter Volnus, he is sealed up in the Tower of Murmuration, using astropaths to send encrypted messages to other Inquisitors with the intention to close the Nakmund Gauntlet for good, and to stay the onslaught of chaos pouring through. He does not explain how, but that's his plan. Because he's an Inquisitor, he's only going to keep it to himself. Next up is Shadowfall. So we've got Caesaran Netar of the Night Lords, uses his rare and arcane dread missiles to create a psychoclastic shadow, which hides his force's final descent to the planet. So it does literally create like this cloud and shadow over the planet using this arcane missile. So it's a shadow of terror that descends to the Imperial defenders below. It drives them mad with fear. This actually also includes Inquisitor Carter Volnus's own Black Iconoclast, which is a cool name, who were being torn apart by the Chaos Legionnaires in the battle down below. The Inquisitor barely escapes the tower alive as the terror detonation sent the astropaths into a meltdown. Black lightning poured from their bodies and an energy wave blows the top of the tower, badly scarring the Inquisitor. So basically this terror cloud sends his astropaths completely mad and they effectively just blow up. And then he just about survives the destruction of the tower. Harkon's assault is then on the spaceport, which was a success. And then after that succeeded, he turns his attention onto the Prefectus Bastion itself, which is where Junif is. And Junif is finalising her last orders before taking her order of battle to the enemy head on, because she's like, okay, right, we're going to go out and start fighting. We've got the War of Angels, which is where Harkon's Raptors make precision strikes on the Sisters of Battle who were defending the Bastion. After inflicting many casualties, the Chaos deployed Helldrakes and Predators alongside Legionnaires in Rhinos, and then to counter the hordes of Chaos was Seraphim and Seraphim, led by Celestine the Living Saint, so she finally turns up. In the munition district, we've got Mandracores, Knights. They're getting annihilated by Legio Tempestors, Warlord, and Reaver Titans. So there's basically a big battle between Chaos Knights and Titans, basically. And that's happening throughout. And then we've got the Grand Battery, which is basically the big guns that we talked about afterwards, where the Space Marines are. So the Guardians of the Galaxy are struggling to hold their line. They're managing to combine the weight of attacks against the Chaos Knights and Chorkan's demons. Breaking through the lines, the Chaos Knights manage to destroy one of the gigantic lasers. It collapses into a second cannon, destroying both in the process, and then the Grand Battery is now lost. So Master Nadef orders his demi company of Marines to retreat, because he's like, well, there's no point defending what isn't left to defend.
Well, yeah, if there's nothing there, why bother?
Exactly. So then we've got Hope and Doubt. So despite Celestine's reinforcements, Harkon's forces have pushed back the Sisters of Battle defending the Bastion. Inquisitor Carter Volnus realizes that the Urbanosport Alpha is lost at this point and uses his Voknets of his Black Iconoclast to order dropships in for an evacuation. Because he's like, yeah, this is done for, guys, already. The tide has already turned and we're losing. And he's like, we've got to get out of here. Celestine and her fellow Jump Pack sisters have a huge sky battle against the Raptors. At this point, I think it's like a one page of like a bloodbath of she's just going around murdering loads of Night Lords with her sword. Celestine finally sees Canonessa Rita's lines faltering and she rushes off to save her warriors. The attacks by Celestine forces had blunted the assault on the Bastion, with Harkon capturing the Akrandor spaceport. Heavy assault vehicles are now being able to be brought down to the planet to join the assault on behalf of the Chaos. This is Harkon also sent in his loyal Black Legionnaires into the Bastion to ensure that it'd be his victory and therefore his gift to give to Abaddon. Meanwhile, Eureka brings up her final reserve of troops from within the Bastion to the front line in a last-ditch effort to fight. So a bit of a Hail Mary on her half. The Living Saint reaches Eureka and tells her that she must not die in vain and that there's no hope of winning, and instead she must retreat. And the Canoness would otherwise protest, but as this came from who she believes is a conduit of the Emperor's will, she will not question it. Otherwise, she'll be like, well, I'm just doing my own thing.
Yes, no,
fight to the death. Then we've got Eureka and Celestine and the Bastion's forces combined. Some stayed behind to act as a last stand to defend the others as they leave. Eureka issues her final command, and it's basically a feint attack to the northwest of the Bastion, where the Black Legionnaires redeploy to counter the attack. Meanwhile, the rest of the sisters disengage and swiftly move to the southeast of the Bastion, the opposite side, and Celestine and her forces act as a rearguard action, allowing Eureka's forces to flee from the Bastion. We've got Master Nadref and his Guardians of the Covenant. They're being chased down by House Mandracore Knights. It's a strategic withdrawal, so they're managing to lure several war dogs into a trap and eliminate them for their hasty behaviour. Nadref receives orders from Eureka to withdraw from the Urbanos Alpha. The city might be lost, but there's still many battles that need to be fought across the planet before Sanguiterra would fall, because obviously this is just one Urbanosport. There are many others, but this is the main one.
Fair.
The Guardian of the Covenant's reserve gunships were called up to extract Narjef and his demi company. We've then got the Titans of Legio Tempestor. They've been chasing down the Knights, who are chasing down the Space Marines.
Yes.
But soon they find themselves...
Like a Benny Hill episode.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. There's a bit of a... Someone's chasing them and they're being chased themselves.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so the Legio Tempestor find themselves fighting off the demonic forces of Chorkan. The Titan Thunderlord... Lixades if that is how it's correctly pronounced.
Old Lixades.
Lixades. It sounds its war horn before the Titan unleashes their entire arsenal into the Horde, because they're like, we're just going to get overrun. So it just fires all the guns all at once. We've got Wings of Deliverance. So the Imperial extraction point was at a location known as the Flare Scar, which is an area filled with empiric instability. Toxic pools and semi-corporeal predators live in this area, and all remnants of the solar flare. They're basically remnants of a solar flare which devastated part of the capital. So it's like a bit of a weird bit of the capital itself. Harkon was personally overseeing the takeover of the Bastion. Its data held within was of paramount importance, basically, and it was also a symbolic nature, that it was more of a prize than capturing Eureka, though he had sent in mechanized infantry forces to send to capture her. So basically he's dealing with the Bastion, and he sends mechanized troops off to capture Eureka, because he's like, whatever about her, I'll deal with her later. This is more important.
Yeah, enough of that noise.
Exactly. Celestine's forces alongside a Dominion squad in Rhinos and Immolators ensure that the retreating forces weren't overwhelmed by Harkon's forces, buying them time to reach the extraction point. To the north, the Titans of Legio Tempestor were being overrun and had no way of getting to the extraction point. They faced off against the Demon Force, and now the Knights of House Mandracore, who could not keep up with the retreating Guardians of the Covenant and instead turned back to fight the Titans. So the Titans are being overwhelmed on both sides. As one Reaver fell, a bloodthirster flew at the Warlord Titan Thunderlord Lyaxides and was hacking away at its head, basically smashing in its head, trying to reach the Princeps inside for that tasty...
for those,
crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside for that old...
the inverse dime bar, I suppose.
For people that are old enough to remember that ad.
Because they're not even called dime bars anymore, are they? They're dame bars. That's not the thing that people overlook.
They're nonsense. But anyway, the crew's inside is about to die, so Princeps Drentor orders the reactor to be overloaded and blow it up, because he's like, we are going out in style, boys. In the skies above, vessels of all shapes and sizes are finally landing at the extraction zone. Guardsmen, sisters and space marines all board the vessels to escape while taking fire from the Black Legion and the Night Lords. We've got the last gunship. So Celestine's rearguard action was the last to reach the extraction zone, and she was also the last to board the final gunship. Her face is half charred and blistered at this point. Her left arm is broken. Blood is dropping down onto the floor, which is then later collected in vials and revered, because people are like, she's the living saint. Harkon World Claimer, meanwhile, is pacing about the former command chamber of Junith Irita. Repairs are already underway in the Bastion, for want of a better word. The Aquillas are being defiled. The relics and statues are replaced with trophies of skulls, because you've got to make it more chaosy and homely for the Chaos guys.
Well, exactly. You've got to, put your mark on the place.
Exactly. Yeah, put some black candles in instead of white ones. And then around a hololith table stands his commanders that were instrumental in capturing the capital. Even T'Chorkan was in attendance, but via a demonic boy who I think is like possessing him. That's how that works. Because he's busy chilling out on his moon. He doesn't leave. Harkon announces that all would be rewarded, but also traitors would be punished. He throws a helmet across the table that was hanging down by his side that originally people thought was his, but it clearly isn't. It turns out to be the helmet of Lord Vihex, who was the commander of the Crimson Claw. The helmet's face showed signs that its owner's soul had been painfully extracted. The mark of Tachorkan's sigil is still visible on the helmet, and it was then clear that this was the price of Tachorkan's assistance, because no other commander who was gifted the sigil was at the table, and those that were at the table knew the price for putting their will above that of the War Master. So the warlords were issued new targets to fight the Northern and Southern Hemisphere. So basically the sigil that was gifted to the Chaos Space Marines was a bit of a trap, because these were the traitorous Chaos Lords that were putting their own agendas first and foremost above Abaddon's. And Harkon just knew that and did a little sneaky bargain, and their souls have been extracted, and Tachorkan has those souls. Meanwhile, the rest of the loyalists, warlords, have been given new targets across the rest of the planet, because yes, they have the Urbanospore Alpha, but they don't have the rest of the planet. Harkon then turns his attention to a machine. One that was one that was fused with flesh. It was a monstrous creation using the remnants of Lord Admiral Prisker, who I believe was one of the naval ship officers, the commanders.
Quite possibly. I think yes, actually.
Yeah. But this device was bent to Harkon's will and will be used to unlock all the data inside the sector command, because basically he's turned it into a key, and because he had because it's Lord Admiral Prisker had the security clearance, he can use him fused to this machine to decrypt the information in the Bastion. Guess what, Cam? The end.
What is it, Phil?
That was it. It was kind of quick.
I mean, it was kind of quick. I mean, it was a bunch of stuff that happened. We can't pretend that. I think the thing is, right, is like with this one is, and I experienced this, where it was like, obviously there was a lot of stuff, but the thing is in terms of your key players, Harkon World Claimer, sorry, I'm going to sneeze. No, that was a terrible sneeze. Whoa. Anyway, Harkon World Claimer is a bit of a lame character, and as such, stories revolving around him and his escapades aren't always going to necessarily fill you with excitement, I suppose. But, ultimately, it is obviously really good that GW is sticking with him and trying to kind of give him a little bit more agency, a bit more gravitas, a bit more oomph within the narrative. They're obviously trying to make him feel like a bigger deal. It sort of feels utterly pointless in some regards, but I guess they came to the conclusion that Abaddon can't be everywhere, and thus, we need a character that can, take on that situation.
Because I guess Abaddon is on... Well, I don't know if he's actually on it or not, but I assumed he would be with Wormwood, which is the demonic planet of Vashtor's.
That wasn't confirmed.
So I don't know if he's actually on that, or if he's on the Vengeful Spirit doing his own thing, maybe. So maybe he's somewhere else in the galaxy.
He's on the Vengeful Spirit doing his own thing.
But we don't know where.
If you remember during the events of the Arcs of Omen, it started out with him and Vashtor being kind of pally-pally, and then he kind of obviously reversed it on Vashtor for a bit and was less helpful as time went on, and then, but then Vashtor ended up fighting Be'lakor more than anything, and the whole thing went a bit sort of topsy-turvy on that side of things. But, I think with Abby, obviously in the events of the previous kind of Nachman and thus Vigilus campaigns, he has, kind of withdrawn from the area following the events that kind of transpired there, and then Harkon has hung around and
to become the main player,
kind of, Yeah, which again is totally fine. Like, I think, again, you need a kind of chaos antagonist in that space. It's just one of those weird ones where it's one of those instances where it never really makes complete sense within the kind of way that Games Workshop does things, that you end up with a new character when there were maybe other characters that could have potentially kind of filled that void. But at the end of the day, Harkon is a perfectly, serviceable character, but just not a very inspired one. I think at the end of the day, he's one of those ones that needs a good Black Library series by like Aaron Dembski Bowden to really kind of like flesh him out and give him a bit more of a kind of sense of oomph, because it feels like I haven't read any of them if they do exist, but I don't believe that they've done any real kind of deep dive or anything more than just like Bolter-porn style books about Harkon necessarily. So yeah, it just feels a little bit, I just don't know really what he's about. It just, again, unfortunately to me, the way they portrayed him when he first came into existence, he just has a bit of that Starscream vibe. And I'm not really, mad keen on the Starscream vibe.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously like the second in command, but he's not really had any like, I don't know, like even in this book, he doesn't have any like one-on-one battles of note. He's sort of a bit of a strategician and a bit of a sneaky guy, I guess, in terms of how he's how he's done things like his dealing with T'Chor Khan and getting rid of his sort of untrustworthy warlords, which was kind of like a cool move. But there was no real explanation as to how he knew what these people were up to. So yeah, I guess it's one of those things where you feel like he should be a sort of a frontline brawler type of character, but he's just this background device to drive the story forwards, and he's taking a bit of a back seat in the story ultimately. And to be fair, Junifer Rita's a similar sort of character. Like, she doesn't really fight all that much herself, but she's a strategician. And the thing that was good with her in this is you actually see strategy with her that they explain. And it's very briefly. I think they did it a few times, but specifically at the end, she's like, cool, we're going to do a feint up here to draw Harkon's forces in while we escape out the back door. And it's like, that was, even though that was quite a minor thing, that at least showed you her competency, whereas with Lord Solar, oh god, even I've forgotten his name now, Leontus from the last from the first book, like they said he was doing great strategy, but they never actually showed it to you. So at least in this book, they sort of correct that, and they actually show you some strategy and tactics taking place in terms of the defense of the bastion and the falling back and stuff like that. So that was quite good. I felt like that was a sort of improvement from the story, but it is much more, it is very similar to the Tyrannic War book in terms of it's like a sort of a mindless force attacking Forge, attacking a sector and targeting one particular planet, and there's a battle around the defense of a bastion / fortress with the main characters in. So all of that is basically like for like, very similar in terms of how the Tyrannic War plays out versus this one. So it's a very similar sort of story, but they've obviously swapped Tyranids for Chaos, and they've given you a few different characters, some of which are quite notable ones, some are made up. It feels like that's always the 50-50 mix that they seem to do with this one, with the exception, I think, of the Prior Nexus. Prior Nexus felt like it was more named characters that have models, with a couple of sort of made up ones thrown in, whereas this one's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, because it's that thing where, the kind of players involved are all perfectly, acceptable in their own right, but none of them really stand out. The events then sort of lose a sense of significance as a result. But again, it's more to do with how they establish these characters and the sort of stakes around them, really. It all feels very, again, the language is all very matter of fact and everything is very sort of, kind of clinical, I guess, in the way that it is delineated through the story. So I think that's it, really. I think ultimately, to me, I find and believe that the events of this particular book are perfectly, as I say, perfectly serviceable, but fairly unremarkable. I think, again, when you consider what Nachmund as a campaign represented in terms of the re-emergence of Calgar as a Primaris, the whole sequence of events of him fighting with Abaddon, the overall weight and consequence of that was quite weighty and significant at the time, whereas now we're in a sort of world where it's like, cool, well, yeah, that was then, but now it's just a story about Harken being angry, and that's what you get. That's your story now. Angry Harken running around being a nuisance. Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because obviously Planet Killer is like there, but doesn't really get used other than to use the choir of Chaos Sorcerers to contact the demon. Like, it doesn't open up and just go, right, we're blowing up the planet, or it doesn't blow up another planet from what I recall. So that felt like a bit of a missed opportunity, unless that's just a setup for a future story. And it feels like the point in this story is they've taken Chaos have won the main city. All the good guys of note have escaped, but there will be more battles to be had on this planet. And there's no real, I guess there's strategic importance to an extent, but the only thing of note about this planet of why Harken wants it is because Abaddon wants it. And he's like, I want this planet to be my staging ground. But is it of key importance for some reason? I guess it's probably meant to be the main planet in the sector, so that's why. But beyond that, it doesn't like, there's not like Noctilith crowns there, or there's not some other greater secret. But obviously there's this bastion that has loads of, secrets inside it. But then I guess any planet would have that in terms of, that sort of level of information aboard it. So it gives us a little tease as to what, that might be of importance going forwards. But yeah, it definitely felt like, it felt very similar to Tyrannic War, but equally sort of not equally as uninteresting as that one was. Whereas I felt like Prior Nexus was like loads went on in Prior Nexus. There was a lot of back and forth. There was loads of people being resupplied. There was like different waves. We had Belisarius Cool. There was like mass war crimes happening with all the kind of archaic weapons. There was, treacherous Necrons happening, fighting each other. So it's like a Necron civil war. Whereas with this, it's like, yeah, we're just attacking a planet. Oh, we've had a fight. Oh, we won. Like, that's it. Like they talk about and hint that there were these sort of treacherous warlords, or not necessarily treacherous per se, but just not loyal enough. Like they're seeking their own agendas, but they don't really elaborate on that with the story. So yeah, the story was a little bit underwhelming on that point. I mean, there is graphically and presentation wise, it was done a lot better. As I talked about in the last episode, I did like a little breakdown of all the different types of pages that all the stories have. So this one had 34 pages, which is pretty standard for the rest of them. They all seem to be about that size. But there were 7 pages which featured maps or schematics of like the Planet Killer or Urbano Sprawl got a map, so you got to see that. There was 2 pages featuring an army list. There were 2 pages featuring real-world leaflets that talked about like propaganda posters. There were 2 pages filled with those like character information and like pretty pictures of all the characters. And then there were 7 pages of narrative story, which I think is like the highest one we've had so far. And then there was also the campaign poster as well. So for what you get in terms of how they presented the story, it was a lot more visually interesting and sort of broken up into all these different formats. So that's been really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like the presentation of it, to be fair. I do like the maps. I like the kind of imagery that they put in there. I quite like as well the fact that there's good emphasis on missions with asymmetric gameplay as well. I think that's cool to see. Obviously, in the time since then, they've incorporated a number of these asymmetries into the main kind of competitive or specifically 25 to 26 kind of
chapter approved deck.
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff has kind of moved in, but at the time that was quite nice to see some of the asymmetry being explored, which was super cool. And I think that's the thing ultimately, is I think there's a lot of really good stuff in the book in terms of its overall presentation and its overall kind of kind of graphics and so on. I think it's to a good quality. It's just that I think the narrative within just leaves you a little bit cold, I suppose. But that's something of a common trend with at least we've done 3 of them so far. 2 out of 3 of them were a bit sort of whatever. Credit where credit's due to the Pariah Nexus. At least had some intriguing elements with the civil wars and the major characters, the Silent King, releasing loads of Catan. All of that was pretty exciting. So yeah. Plus it came, Phil, with a nice poster, didn't it?
Yeah, well, the poster is the campaign map. So
yes,
one side is a poster, and then one side's the campaign map for specifically using the Crusade campaign.
So there you go, a little bit of added value, mate.
Yeah,
who doesn't like that? Hey?
Exactly. No, that's a nice touch. None of the others get that, but it's good to see.
Almost
that
like the story in it is the weakest of all. It's almost like they're like, oh god. Well, they saw what they came up with, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna have to give away a poster with this one."
Yeah, I don't know which was the weaker, Tyrannic War or this one. I felt like they were on a par. I felt like there was probably more takeaway moments in the Tyrannic War one in terms of some of the stuff where they were battling. I want to say the Dimikar one, but it wasn't. It's the jumbo Tyranid assassin model that is basically a Dimikar in plastic. Yeah, like that. There was 3 of those stalking around and fighting, and one of them gets smashed by Trajan as he's trying to go after Leontus and stuff like that. So there was maybe more individual moments of notable worth with battles. This had some interesting bits, like the space battles, like when they first come through the gauntlet. I thought that was quite cool, where they do their little ploy with decoy ships and stuff like that. Obviously, they hint at Carter Volnus having a plan to be able to close the Nachman gauntlet, but that feels like a tease for next time in terms of what he'll be up to.
I think that's the thing. I think you're right in the sense that, at least in this one, they explored and sort of spoke to some of the, kind of tactical elements and didn't just kind of turn it into, and then he won. Although there was still lots of that in there still. But yeah, fundamentally, I feel like on balance or imbalance, I think, it's hard to really kind of divide between those two in terms of which is the stronger. I think Tyranid War is a little better only because of the fact that Tyranid War featured some kind of, there were some obvious hooks that you could tie into, even if they were a bit kind of contrived. But I think the Tyranid War stuff, just because of the fact that it was the start of the edition, they got the new miniatures, they involved some key characters. It had Trajan Valoras in it. It had Lord Solar. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Were these characters really that pivotal or integral to some of the narrative moments? Were they utilised to their full extent? I felt like Trajan Valoras was simply there just to basically be the MacGuffin that finished the story, you know what I mean? It got to the point where they were like, how do we resolve this problem? Trajan Valoras, of course. It's cool. But I think with Nachman, it just doesn't really have... It's just a bunch of stuff that happened. Whereas, I think Pariah Nexus is the strongest of the 3 so far. If
we're being really cynical, I would say Nachman Gauntlet is a story of B-listers in terms of the cast of characters that are taking part. At least with Tyrannic War, you had Lord Solar Leontus and Trajan, who were kind of, I would say, big deals for their armies.
Oh yeah, they're big names.
You had Celestine here, which I think is the relay lister of the story, but she sort of shows up towards the end. Whereas Prior Nexus, you've got like everyone and its dog, so you know that one's rammed full of people of note.
Yeah. Well, there we go. I reckon that'll do in terms of talking about that side of things. I don't know, given how quick that is, if we'll come up with something else to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record us saying goodbye, everyone, and then conclude it with a transitional noise in case I need it. So goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Transitional noise. Wow.